I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes.
You have been running a toy fundraiser for how long?
This year will be our 19th year.
Well, I mean, first if people aren't already aware of the Star Wars Holiday Special, what is it?
The Star Wars Holiday Special is a real thing that aired once in 1978 and never again. And it was the heyday of variety shows. And somebody wanted more Star Wars and decided the way to get it into our homes was to wrap it inside a variety show. I mean, it is bad. Like the first 10 minutes are all in Wookiee, and it is mind-bending that anybody thought, well, I wonder what Chewbacca's home life is like, but we now know.
Editors and creatives have never had this much power and tools at their disposal. Were you involved in the edit? How do you eat? Writing for me also is therapy. On this week's episode, we have Chris Grap, head honcho of Experience at the Mall of America. I'm your host, Matt Osterman, filmmaker and business founder. If you happen to like this episode, it would mean the world to us if you could like, subscribe, and comment. You have one of the coolest job titles I've seen, Vice President of Experience at the Mall of America. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's funny because we made it up along the way, but ultimately at the end of the day, my team and I are the ones who curate. That's a really facetious word, but no, really try to curate the guest experience for the common area of the mall. So we're responsible for the events in the common area, a lot of things like Santa over holiday, but really it's events, entertainment, and AV that are really just trying to bring everything together to put it in front of guests. We just want to make sure everybody has a positive experience there. And it's something that evolved organically from when I started there. It didn't exist.
They made it up for you, basically.
Yeah.
Or you made it up.
Yep. My boss and I made it up along the way. We tried a bunch of different things out, a bunch of buzzwords, let's see what sticks. No, but truly, my first title there was business development specialist.
It's very generic.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if I could do that if I tried, but really what it was an opportunity. And what was exciting about Mall of America to me at the time was it felt very retail focused, and rightly so. But you owned and operated your own movie theaters at the time. You had a theme park at the time. All these tenants like Sea Life or Moose Mountain Mini Golf. There was this experience that was there that to me was more interesting than just, well, we have a bunch of stores.
Right.
Because Old Navy here is the same as Old Navy over there. What makes us different? And it was really working to try and pull all those things together to create what we now call
meta-narrative thing.
Experiential.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because again, the headlines all around, mall apocalypse and malls are dying. And it was interesting, my first 6 years there, I've been there 12 years now, but I really spent a lot of time saying, well, we're not a mall. Trying to convince people we're not a mall, but it's in our name. But now I've since changed that narrative to we are the mall. And if malls want to survive, they need to do the things that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of malls have died, but others are thriving. Is there a common thread on what's working and what's not? Is it the experience part of it?
I mean, I think so. I think a lot of the retailers that have done well have really leaned into what that is. And that could be something easy. And I'll use the movie theater as an example because it was the easiest for me. But at the time, our theaters didn't necessarily do well. It was catching business from people that were there traveling, maybe hotel travelers.
Had some time.
Yeah. But a movie theater is great because in theory, you're getting new content every week. And if you can get that guest to enjoy the experience there, they're going to come back time and time again. And so what I really wanted to do was use that to build a community. So I worked with my friend Tim Holly, Colette Ritchie, and we started doing programming that at the time wasn't offered a ton in the Twin Cities. But we would do nights where we would just show movie trailers. We called it trailer trash. And it was all 35 millimeter trailers because we had joked the best part of going to the movies is the previews. So let's just give everybody the weirdest
they even
previews.
they ruined the previews now too.
I know.
That's right. That used to be my favorite part too. And now, yeah.
I know. I I lament as well. But then just coming up with unique programming to see if we could build a community that would come back. So if they're coming to the things that we're doing and then they'll come back for the other movies that they would normally see. So that was interesting to me. So now you look at retailers like, especially like Nike, Lululemon, Fabletics, Sephora, people that really have leaned into the community aspect of it, I think are offering a better experience for their guests, and they're doing extremely well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. I think it's part of the evolution anyway. There was a huge boom, and there was a lot of the stuff, and some of it needed to go away so the rest could thrive.
Yeah. Well, you look at stores even like Dick's Sporting Goods, who in other malls have the outdoor experience now, where they have this giant field that you can go play on and try things out. So they're kind of leaning into the experiential piece, right? Because you can't just sell stuff, because now you're competing with just Amazon or Walmart. Where's that extra layer? And you guys are doing that in spades, I think.
Yeah. And we have an advantage too. We've been doing this since before it was buzzy, since before it had a name. Retailtainment wasn't a thing when it started. And I'm just fortunate to be in a spot where I'm trusted to do some things with that.
Yeah.
You don't get to see a water skiing squirrel just anywhere.
You just had the water skiing
Twiggy.
squirrel, right?
Yeah, Twiggy was back. Yeah, we love Twiggy.
Does Twiggy bring a crowd?
Absolutely, and rightly so.
Well, yeah.
It's basically, I lament the loss of the Daredevil. Evel Knievel, even the fellas from Jackass, there was a case to be made, but right now, our Daredevil hero is Twiggy the water skiing squirrel.
Twiggy's filling
That's
that
what we
void.
got. Yes, exactly.
All right. I haven't seen Twiggy live. I've seen videos. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's a fun show. And I love being able to do things like that. And so it's important. We use the Rotunda as our main event space. And that's for everything, whether it's musicians from Minnesota that we want to spotlight, or professional wrestling, or a drag show, or a K-pop festival. I love just being able to highlight things in that space. So every time you come, there might be something different there. The Midwest Regional Yo-Yo Championship. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do it all.
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun.
Yeah. And the mall itself is the biggest, if not one of the biggest in the country, right?
Correct. It is the biggest from a square foot standpoint, but I really only care about being the best, and that's the fact that I like to push out there. It is the best.
What's the air conditioning bill like?
Is gigantic. It would reflect the fact that it is also the biggest. Yes.
Who's got the biggest air conditioning bill? Flop it on the table.
Oh yeah, that's us. Yeah, roll it out on parchment. The giant scroll goes. No, and that's another thing too. Like, they continually reinvest in the property and take care of it, and I think it's reflected when you're there as well.
Yeah, totally.
Which sounds like a marketing ploy, but true. Yeah, the air conditioning's great, and our attendance right now also reflects that people are enjoying the air conditioning.
Yeah, I suppose it's an oasis.
Exactly.
In bad weather. In all seriousness, what is it like to work there on a day-to-day basis?
Most days, this sounds so cheesy, but it is a privilege. I feel that I get to work with a great team, and I feel like I've earned enough trust where I get the latitude to try some things that wouldn't normally happen. And for me right now, especially, there's nowhere else that's like it, especially in the Midwest. My family is here. I want to be here. So the fact that somehow in this weird, twisted second act of life, I found myself at Mall of America, most of the time I feel nothing but gratitude.
Yeah, well, you get to go walk the mall, or you're telling me earlier about the farting bench, right? And you get to see people sit down and have this experience that you were responsible for.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get much cooler than that.
No, and I love the anonymity that we have as well. I love the fact that our offices are on property, so we get to walk right out onto the floor every day and see how guests are engaging with the things that we put out there. And that to me is really important. A lot of times folks will go to a trade show and see something that's cool, buzzy, it's the shiny object. But as we know from Mad Max Fury Road, that's bait. And you really need to think of how something is going to work for the guest who doesn't want to be in a common area space engaging with something where they feel like they're going to be made to look foolish, or they don't understand. So really you have to be careful with those things. But it is a unique privilege to walk around there, and the slime bench is my favorite spot. Mm-hmm. If you're having a moment, you just have some time, go into the east entrance of Nickelodeon Universe. My favorite is when mom, dad, grown up gets ready to take the picture. Kid sits down, the thing farts, home run. Parents are so upset. why did you do that? And no, it was the chair. I've seen some arguments happen. No, it really was. It was the chair. It was not your child.
I will absolve you.
Help you on this one. Yeah. But it's a blast to be able to do things like that.
Outside of the farting slime chair, if you're to take somebody on a secret tour of the mall, where else would you take them?
My favorite spot is the Log Chute, which is a flume ride. Again, the fact that there's a flume ride inside Mall of America is wild and unique.
And a really fun one.
It's a super fun one. And it's Paul Bunyan and Babe based. So Tall Tales and Legends doesn't have any Nickelodeon IP, intellectual property attached to it. And to be able to take guests back of house where they can see 27-foot tall animatronic Paul Bunyan and all the crazy machinations that hold him together at this point after his 32 plus years in Mall of America is a really fun thing.
Speaking of IP, where's the Paul Bunyan IP? Where's the Paul Bunyan movie? Right, it should be mined, I think.
It's true. Now, there was, Disney did Tall Tales. Was it called Tall Tale? With Patrick Swayze was in it.
Oh my gosh, I think you're right.
And wasn't Oliver Platt Paul Bunyan? Was it Oliver? Anyway,
yeah,
we need to bring that back. Yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of potential there. Yeah,
Well, nowadays it for sure would have a horror slant to it, since we've got Steamboat Willie, and Paul's already got an axe. He's ready.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Babe's intimidating, just goring children. Yeah.
Ticket sold. Yeah.
Well, there's Night at the Museum. It could be Night at Mall of America.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll change the setting. Let's put that somewhere.
You don't want to create more problems for yourself.
No.
Yeah.
It's okay.
All right. You're playing a different game. I get it.
I'm done with night shoots. Yeah, if I can avoid it.
We'll get into your film stuff in a little bit. But how do you incorporate like other storytelling at the Mall of America? Because you're kind of doing this meta narrative thing. Like, how does it find its way into the experience?
A ton of different ways. And I think that's exactly it. And you know this as well. It all comes down to storytelling. And it can be something as easy as what's in the box or what happens when the clock hits 0. I will lean into those tropes until
they work for a reason.
But really, it's giving some agency to the guests and meeting them at levels where they're comfortable. So the big one for me is redoing our Santa experience. There was a common area, standard mall Santa experience, which for us even then was still elevated. We had elves, we had Mrs. Claus, we redirected the pathway through the trees. So it was almost like Santa was obscured until it was your time to visit with Santa, but it was still essentially the hug and shove retail opportunity, right? There you are. Great picture done. Go over there, buy it. So what we did is we reimagined that with a partner, Hotop, based out of Seattle, and it's called the Candy Cane Institute. The Candy Cane Institute has been around since the 70s, and it was Santa's head elves.
Is it related to the Lollipop Guild, or is that...
Nope, totally separate.
Okay.
Totally separate.
Sure.
Warring factions. The Capulets and the Montagues. It's just, we don't want to get into it. But really, it's Santa's head research elves that have been sciencing Christmas since 1972, and they nailed it. I mean, you remember the holidays from when we were a kid. It was awesome. But now you kind of look up now and people are distracted. They got devices in their hands. They're not paying attention. So the elves really wanted to set up this market research center and bring some stuff and put it in front of guests and just find out what is it that makes the holidays special? What's interesting? And bless them, they just get stuff wrong. So you end up having to talk to their manager, who of course is Santa. But one of the big things that we changed along the way is I realized there are many professional Santas out there, probably to varying degrees of comfort in interactivity, but I found many of the ones we worked with looked great in a photo, but they had a pattern that they just couldn't break out of.
Yeah.
And so we changed that. And I truly believe that if we put somebody in front of a kid and said, this is Santa, they would believe it's Santa. Mm-hmm. And so we started hiring improv actors as Santa. And the engagements with guests have been better and better every year because Santa can talk about so many different things and is equipped to have better conversations with shy kids, with outgoing kids. It has been a blast to see.
Uses "and" in their sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's an improv
Yep, that's
skill,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, and
so
their way through
the
conversation.
A fat old white guy with a beard anymore. You have to have some skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what folks should expect from us anyway, is something a little bit more elevated and considered, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Our in-house entertainment team is fantastic. The elves and Mrs. Claus are amazing, and our Santas are great. It's a blast.
What are you most proud of since you've worked there, that you've worked on?
From a work standpoint?
Yeah, I think so.
I think, honestly, getting closed on Thanksgiving was a big one. Because Black Friday had crept earlier and earlier into Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And it just felt like we weren't getting more business. It was just stretched over a longer period of time. And there was one Thanksgiving when we were there, and I remember my buddy was walking the parking ramps and checking cars, and we're in there, and it's just desolate, and it felt like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And so I had made the pitch with a couple other co-workers that we should close on Thanksgiving and bring a sense of ceremony and celebration back to Black Friday, the way it was when I was a kid.
Right.
My grandmother would have this militaristic operation, pencil and the circulars and getting all of her deals and everything ready.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was a serious thing. Mm-hmm. And that to me was a big leap of faith on part of our ownership and management, saying, okay. Mm-hmm. But then that was the oh shit moment. Like, oh no, they said yes.
Did the retailers push back
to do that
at all?
Some of them did. In the first year we did it, the way it was done is if you had an exterior entrance, you could be open.
Sure.
Because then they could maintain it. But that way we were able to give the day back to our staff. And then we also, because Thanksgiving had been a time and a half day, we moved that to Black Friday. So you're getting your
There's still
holiday
people that want to get
and you're getting time and a half, because it really is. It's a huge day for us.
Yeah.
And I remember the first year then having to come up with, well, what are we going to do on Black Friday? How are we going to make this work? And again, we talked about this before. It is a little bit Willy Wonka. It is a little bit Walt Disney. But I thought I would love to give adults that moment again, too, of discovery. And this is straight up what's in the box. So we made this giant contraption out of presents. Guests would walk up to it, stand on it, and there was a little light show, and there was a hero box. You opened that up, and inside was a wrapped present. And then they got to open it, and they got to keep what was inside. So this was what has become the mystery gift scratch off that we now do every Black Friday at the north entrance. And thousands of people line up at that door to get their mystery gift.
People like free stuff? Are you kidding?
So this is what I found. People like spinning a wheel, but
Yep.
people like free stuff. But we have given it a moment too. So you're not just getting the can koozie at the state fair or whatever it is. People crowd around and they cheer and they have a blast. So the way that has evolved has been really fun. I think that's probably the thing that I can point to where we did it for the right reason.
Yeah.
And it worked. And people made the choice to spend that time with us then because of the choice we made to close on Thanksgiving.
For sure. Yeah, that's a classic case of addition by subtraction. Mm-hmm. You made the world a better place, and you made Black Friday actually something significant versus just being, the day after Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Win-win.
That's a fun one.
That is a good one. And now you have a water park rolling in, too. Tell us about that.
That one also was, again, just a lot of trust from ownership, and I appreciate it. I've never had experience designing a water park. I've been fortunate enough to work on some attractions in Nickelodeon Universe, but I feel like I know how to tell a pretty good story. And I saw some of the direction that was coming from the water park at the time, and I was like, I don't know if I like this. So I really just sat down at my kitchen table one night, started scrawling out some ideas, and cobbled together what I look back on now as probably one of the worst PowerPoint presentations ever. But I more or less just sabotaged a meeting and started this what if, and laid out this idea for a story and laid out this idea for an opportunity where we are no longer beholden to an IP that largely tells people how they can play, but we're going to create our own so people can play how they want to. And it worked. And then I found myself on a design team for a water park.
Oops.
And once again, it was that, oh shit, now we got to do this thing. And my two project partners, Brian Spielman and Nate Klutz, VP of Attractions, VP of Construction. So the three of us really worked with a lot of other fantastic people to help shape this thing, because we didn't want it to be just a water park. We wanted it to be a theme park with water-based attractions and really deliver something that hasn't been done here before. in this area specifically.
Yeah.
So it has been a beast. We were about 3 months away from shovels in the ground when COVID hit. And then that upended that project and the world, if you remember. But it came back. And so it has been a saga bringing it back. And it's been a blessing in some ways where we have opportunity to do some things differently before, like putting in an open air retractable roof system, which wasn't a part of the plan before. So there have been some advances with some of the surrounding amenities, like water slides. There's only so many creative ways you can start up here and get down here
Before you kill people, yeah. Yeah.
So it's been really interesting. And again, it's one of those things where most days it's a privilege, but some days it just feels like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Yeah.
But I just feel thankful. I've met a ton of great people along the way, different designers, different partners, but I'm really excited to get shovels in the ground on this thing.
Yeah.
And do something that folks in the area are going to be proud of, but also it's going to change the way people travel, I hope. You don't have to go to the Dells. You don't have to go to Disney. We've got some things here that you can have a wonderful staycation.
I made a movie a few years back called 400 Days where I got to design a spaceship. And I'm like, holy shit, 10-year-old Matt is like just over the moon right now. I'd imagine 10-year-old Chris designing a water park would be pretty excited.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got facial hair. Yeah, there's some things, but that's exactly it. And you have to stay in touch with that part of yourself. You have to stay present with who you were then, because again, to me, that's where we were curious and we didn't know things weren't possible. We just found ways to make it work with the tools we had. And that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, being able to leverage that imagination, right? A lot of adults, I think, just kind of move beyond that and they forget that kid still exists in there, and you have it, and you're trying to pull it out of other people, which is pretty great place to be.
Well, and to me, it's the same type of thing as if people don't know any better, you hire a Santa because you hire a Santa.
Right.
But it's who's going to be best in that role. Well, maybe it's not Santa. We'll just say it is. And it's that same type of idea. There's knowing the resources that you have and working within that framework is important as well. But it's okay to do things different. It's okay to try some different things.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging for folks who are like, no, we just want a water park. Any water park is better than no water park, I've heard folks say. And I think that is woefully fucking misguided.
Well, I love the what if thing that you kept saying, like, what if this, what if that, right? I think a lot of folks are like first level thinkers. They're like, okay, does it check the box? Good, check, moving on, right? But you're pushing it. You're saying, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we, you probably go off on tangents that maybe didn't, influence the project ultimately, but maybe you learned something from it, or you turned over the stone, you realized maybe that wasn't going to work, this wasn't going to work. Now we have confidence that the core idea is going to work. What if we go further with it?
Exactly. And I think it's also when you're doing an indoor water park, you have one shot to be right. Because when you're an outdoor, you have more space, more opportunity. If something doesn't work, you can change it over time. We're in the box. We're in
the plumbing alone
right?
dictates what you can do.
This is it.
Yeah.
So Brian, Nate, and I, who I mentioned before, we rode everything. We went out in the world and we rode everything that was being pitched to us so we could understand what the experience was, but also talk to guests after they were on the thing, like, did this work? What is it that you liked? And really hone in on what it is that made the attraction fun or engaging. And I said this in a city council meeting, much to the lament of my very patient wife at the time when she was the PR director at Mall of America. I said, it's like Def Leppard's Hysteria. It's all killer, no filler. And they're like, she said, don't do that. But it's got to be the greatest hits. It has to be.
Yeah. How many rides are there going to be?
At this point, I believe there will be what we would consider 27 attractions.
No kidding.
But that varies from family slide, body slide, kid slide. So we've designed it as different outposts.
Right.
So there's 5 different outposts that exist within the park. And I think really that's the focus, because the attractions are one thing, but you have to look at leisure as entertainment. Are you comfortable in the space? Is it delivering on something that you want? Food and beverage has to be on par. The atmosphere that you build, music, plant life, lighting. So it's holistic. We've designed for 20 visits, not for one visit. We want there to be so much detail and have it to be so rich that people can't see
And
everything. What is it?
It's indoor, so is it 365 then too?
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be incredible. I mean, we would go to the Mall of America in the winter, like February,
Yeah.
just to like get out of the house, right? When it's like -8.
Same.
Going there is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
We have a tradition where we go,
Yeah.
in mid-February. Just
Yeah, when I was a single dad, when I was here and Dax was a kid, and I didn't know many people at that point. That was it. That was it. That's what we did. And you know how it is too. Being here in the winter, you're just besieged by darkness from 4 o'clock on. So that's the other part of building the indoor water park too, is that day to night transition has to be meaningful and fun as well. It can't look like a Costco with water slides in it.
Right.
It's gotta be special.
Yeah, there's not enough stuff for families around. I mean, maybe, here in Minnesota, we're doing a pretty good job, but nationwide, I hear from other friends too with like, what do? You go to the park, maybe you go to a sports game, you go to the movie. There's not enough stuff out there. Feels like an underserved market. So.
Well, and the thing I like about a water park too, in theory, is you're not going to want your cell phone at the ready.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
You're going to be hanging out and chatting and connecting differently, hopefully. Yes, there are cases you can buy for your phones, but really, I hope if we deliver on what we have intended, people will forget their devices and be together in the space.
Yeah.
And that's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, between shutting down on Thanksgiving and no cell phones allowed in the water park, like you're doing the Lord's service here.
I mean, you can bring it in. Chances are,
yeah, you will not cover any damage.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
totally. You get a lot of celebrities rolling through the mall, right?
We sure do.
I know Ed Sheeran worked a shift at the at the Lego store last year.
Yep.
Any fun celebrity stories that stick out?
All right, that one was a blast. That was a lot of fun. We love it when we have a little bit more time to react to certain things. But just for example, it was 2 weeks ago, Hulk Hogan decided that he was going to come to the mall, like with very little notice.
And you're a big wrestling guy, right?
I do enjoy professional wrestling, yes. But that was fun. And that's one of those things where that man is one of the most recognizable people on the planet. Like there's no mistaking. It's not, is that Hulk Hogan? That's Hulk Hogan.
Right.
So I love that we have this place where people do come and hang out. Alice Cooper's another one that I love.
I think I've seen him at the mall,
Yes,
actually.
he and his wife love Mall of America. And if he's in town, he will just go shopping. So chances are you did see him.
I was there a couple of years ago, and I was just walking, and I'm like, that was Alice Cooper.
Chances are.
Yeah.
Chances are. And one of my favorites, and he lives here, but it still gets me every time, is Ernie Hudson.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite actors anyway, but the fact that he lives here and there he is getting a Piata. That's great. I love it. No, it's fun. The Ed Sheeran thing was a lot of fun. And then because of the Ed Sheeran event, we had an opportunity with Marshmello and Sudden Death, the DJs, to do this retail pop-up. And basically, again, this is where we get a lot of trust. We basically had a rave in the Rotunda on a Saturday afternoon at Mall of America. That's not something that just happens in most places.
No.
But yeah.
Did the ravers show up?
It's unique. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
I mean, those folks are serious.
It was wild. It was a ton of fun. And I hope we get to do something like that again. But yes.
Did you see Marshmello without the...
I did not. I never want to.
Yeah.
I never want to know.
I don't know enough to know if he's
Never wanna know.
exposed his face.
Yeah. I'm sure people know.
It's the internet, yeah. Banksy still. We don't know
Right,
what Banksy looks
yeah.
like.
Big mystery.
Yeah, maybe they're the same person.
Probably
Maybe
at the mall right now. No
Marshmello
idea.
is Banksy.
Could be.
And they're at the mall right now.
Plot twist.
I know you're originally from Wisconsin.
Yes.
You live in Minnesota.
Yes.
But your career kind of started in LA working on movies, right?
For sure. It
Yeah, tell us a
absolutely
little
did.
bit about that experience.
Yeah, again, just the timing of it all was right. And I just had enough misplaced confidence to be like, well, sure, this must be what you do, right? You just take your Honda Accord and drive across the country and everything works out. But I do feel privileged, and I've said this before, but as a child growing up largely in the 80s and just having the VHS store and wanting to know how things were made, and really at the time for us it was Fangoria and Starlog were the closest we could get to understanding the who and the how of those things. So I think by nature of that, I was drawn to horror and sci-fi, and I would watch everything I could. And I remember moving out to LA. I was just sharing this with Sarah too, but my first paid gig was on Unsolved Mysteries. And at the time it was the final season of Unsolved Mysteries. And it was Robert Stack co-hosting with Virginia Madsen, of all things. She did 6 episodes of Unsolved Mysteries for this truncated season that we have.
That's amazing.
And every once in a while, I look to see if I can find them still. I haven't seen them since. But every mystery had a different producer and director. And so I got that exposure working on all these different mysteries with different producers. And one of the ADs was doing a night shoot. And she's like, it's this movie for a company called Full Moon. I was like, Full Moon Pictures? Like Demonic Toys and Puppet Masters? And she was like, you know them? And I was like, absolutely. Love them. And so I did 2 nights on Teen Task Force. And it was, flat rate, $75.
I don't think he pays much more these days.
It was,
but yeah.
For me, a great experience. I got to talk to one of the producers, and he was so nice. Kirk, I can't remember his last name, but I was like, I'm so excited to be here. I love Full Moon. He's like, really? Yeah. I was like, yeah. And so from that, I got to go on to The Dead Hate the Living, which was another Full Moon movie. And me, in my mind, is like, I did it.
Living the dream. Yeah.
I made it. This is great. And we were shooting in, I believe it was called the Linda Vista Hospital, which was basically just a location that was an old hospital and feels very creepy and very appropriate. And one of my friends that I had worked with on The Chaos Factor, he was an electrician, and he told me that the Scout was going to be coming through for Hellraiser 5. And I had called the office for the production. Hey, super interested. Don't know if you need anybody. And then I'm at this Linda Vista Hospital getting ready for whatever the day was on Dead Hate the Living. And I recognized the gaffer from Chaos Factor getting out of this van with a bunch of people. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, this is the Hellraiser Scout. I was like, who is Valerie Bleth? And he points her out. She is the AD on the picture. And I went over and I just introduced myself, and I've been trying to get a hold of you. And at the time, they didn't need anybody, but she was very cordial and very nice. But luckily, somebody ended up dropping off of Hellraiser Inferno, and she called me, and that's how I ended up on Hellraiser.
Incredible.
So I just got to do all these awesome, for me, B-level plus horror movies. And man, like all those years watching all that stuff just paid off. It was a blast.
Yeah. And then you did some more mainstream stuff after that, too.
I did work on a few things people had seen too. Yeah. And it all just traces back to the fact that I did these B movies, and the crews, we ended up working, on bigger and better projects. But yes, Bad Santa.
Yeah. Ironic that you're now helping design the Santa experience at Mall of America. Probably learned a few things from Bad Santa.
You don't want to do that.
Right.
But that was a fun one. Rules of Attraction was fun. Girl Next Door was fun. Wedding Crashers was actually kind of a nightmare from my perspective. So I'm really glad that people enjoyed it. It was not a fun one to make for us.
Okay.
But,
now you have to spill the beans a little bit.
well, it was, the production in LA, in DC, there were some poor communicators on the project that caused a lot of challenges for me. I was only supposed to be coordinating the LA portion, but they had to let the other coordinator go or they were not doing their job. But they were going to horse races, just enjoying the sights out there, taking in different things. And so I had a lot to fix when I got out there. And it was interesting. But you know how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a miracle anything ends up on screen.
Yeah. I mean, they're all chaos factories, really.
Yeah,
It is remarkable that anything gets done. So anytime you even see it, like a movie that's like so-so, you're like, I don't care because I know what it took to make that,
Yeah.
And they pulled it off. It didn't work, but that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. And I feel like I used to be a bit more forgiving because it was harder to get the gear too. There had to be some level of technical competence that went along with this as well. But now it feels like everybody feels like they've got the power in their hand to do it. And it doesn't all work.
Yeah. The
bar's
been
very
lower,
low.
for sure.
But yeah, there was a time for sure where I may have defended the hot chick, but those days are gone.
So then what brought you back to the Midwest?
I was tricked by a woman. My then wife at the time got a job offer from Target corporate, and she was pregnant at the time with our son Dax.
Yeah, your hands were tied.
Yeah, and at the time, incentives were becoming a much bigger part of the industry. So I just figured, oh well, then I'll travel for work as needed, and that'll work out. But she left me almost immediately for a coworker, and I became a single dad really quick, and therefore that's not a choice at all. That's it. And worked on some independent film projects here. Worked for the Film Commission. That was, I believed, a really great opportunity at the time. And obviously now things have changed, and we can see like things are moving in the right direction. It should be state-run organization with the support that it needs. You shouldn't have to fundraise to keep your doors open and fundraise for lobbying. It just was a very cumbersome process.
And attract people to come. Yeah, you couldn't do all of it. Yeah.
So, it's been a winding, circuitous road, and I never planned to be here, but I love Minnesota. I really do. And it was weird to think now I've been here 20 years. This is it. This is home.
And the experiential designer or vice president of experience.
Yeah, let's make sure we get that VP in there.
I know. That's a big
slap
deal.
some respect there.
Sorry.
I know.
Jeez. I'll sue myself out.
No, yeah. Titles are weird. They really are.
Yeah.
And especially, we understand in the nature of film, titles are important.
There's a hierarchy.
Yes.
It matters. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the thing that I loved so much about film production was collaboration, creative collaboration. We all know our roles and we know what we're here to do, and we're going to get it done together. And that's truly what I try to bring to the teams that I work with at the mall. Like, my title is relevant in that I can help you get something done easier. But if we're at this table together, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your ideas. Maybe I'm a tiebreaker, sure, but I really want it to be a creative collaboration.
Yeah, let the best idea win, right? Like, it doesn't matter where it comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You'd be doing everybody a disservice if you didn't take the advice from the lowest ranking member, right?
100%, because everybody's got to start somewhere. And I don't like when people feel like their title gets in the way of them contributing. And so it's very important. And sometimes I forget it, I'm sure. But even when we have interns, like, you have an opportunity here. It's not just punch in, punch out, do your job, but contribute where you can. If you want to take informational meetings with people that are here and learn their path or whatever, like, that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Well, I know in like the writing world, you get notes from studios, right? And sometimes the note sucks, but there's an idea behind the note.
Sure.
You're like, oh, it cracks open another idea, right? So a lot of folks are just ego driven, and they tune those things out.
Yeah.
But if you open up to them like you have, and you empower your collaborators, you're going to crack great ideas.
Well, yes. And sometimes it's tough to remember, and I try not to be so precious about stuff. But when you're ideating and you're creating and you're putting pen to paper and you think you've got that thing, and then someone comes along and doesn't fully understand it, it's not just as easy as moving this over here. But it is that balance. And I appreciate, again, that we have the opportunity to work with interns that are curious and want to know and do ask questions and contribute. Some of our best recent programs have come from interns as well. Like the K-pop festival that we do now was an intern what if. And
That's great.
Great. Love it. Super fun.
Is the what if thing an actual thing you use there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
I'm big on what ifs, and I'm big on yes if and not no because.
Well, it's the improv thing.
Yeah. But it's there for a reason, and it works. And if you can change your mindset around certain things, it creates, like you said, it creates some more opportunity.
Yeah, you're creating surface area for opportunity where like an idea just might bubble up that if you hadn't created that environment, wouldn't be there.
And at the same time, the other one I like to go back to is, if it's not wrong, then it must be right. Because I think there's a lot of people who will hear an idea and think they're supposed to come at it from I need to poke holes in this, or I need to pull it apart, versus, hey, if we've all agreed this is where we're going, and I'm telling you this gets us there, let's not waste any more time and make this the best it can be. If it's not wrong, then it's right. Let's go.
Yeah. Huh, that's great. speaking of not wrong, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Star Wars holiday special.
Yes.
You have been running a toy fundraiser for how long?
This year will be our 19th year.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And what's crazy to me is some people still don't know about it.
Yeah.
And it feels like it haunts me.
Well, I mean, first
Yeah.
if people aren't already aware of the Star Wars holiday special, what is it?
The Star Wars Holiday Special is a real thing that aired once in 1978 and never again. And it was the heyday of variety shows, and the specials on TV often incorporated.
Sonny and Cher would do like have a comedian.
There's going to be a musical number. Maybe there's a ventriloquist. Like, it's just a showcase for things. And somebody wanted more Star Wars and decided the way to get it into our homes was to wrap it inside a variety show. And it is bad. Like, the first 10 minutes are all in Wookiee, and it is mind-bending that anybody thought, well, I wonder what Chewbacca's home life is like. But we now know. So this thing existed. I had faint memory of it. And then when I was living in LA, I bought a VHS tape at a Comic-Con, and it was probably 1999 when I bought it, and watched it. Was like obsessed. Like, oh my, this was real. This wasn't a fever dream. I did see this.
And they tried to suppress it, right?
Yeah, and they tried. So it just lived in VHS circulation forever. And it was actually really funny. My friend, because I would torture my friends with this too. I'd make them watch it. And my friend Jason DeMeo, he and I were working together on Wedding Crashers at the time, and IMDb was, a thing now. And so we would look at people's credits as they were coming on the show. And Garrett, was his name Garrett Lewis? We'll have to fact check that. But he was a production designer or art director, but he worked on the Star Wars Holiday Special. Okay. So we called him into the office one day under the guise if we needed to talk to him about something very important, sat him down in the chair, popped in the VHS and hit play. And I remember it starting, and he had these big glasses on. He kind of sits back. And he looks forward over his glasses again. And he's like, where the fuck did you get this? And it was awesome.
Burn it with fire.
Yeah. Getting to hear the story from him. He's like, oh my God, there were so many drugs around there, but it's the show that got me into the union. And really from there, it was again, an opportunity to maybe try and build a community, maybe see, because I loved sharing it with people and seeing their reactions.
Just a curiosity.
Yeah. So the first year we did it, it was actually in the Minnesota Film and TV Board shared an office with, then it was IFP, which is now Film North.
Yep.
And so we did it in their classroom and just showed it in there. There was a terrible storm. Maybe 10 people showed up and brought toys. And I was like, I think I could do better than this. So the next year I shopped it around a little bit. It was Varsity Theater at the time, a couple other venues, and all of them turned me down except for Bryant Lake Bowl. And Bryant Lake Bowl was super into it, really cool. And we just had one show slated. And that year, somehow, the AP picked up that we were doing it. And so there was this article that was published about screening this thing for Toys for Tots. And we were wildly overwhelmed that the line was out the door, down the block. It was insane. And so we started it early just to get people in and added a second show quickly to do that. And then it just grew over the years where, work with people to do posters, work with different groups to come in and help promote. But at the end of the day, it's just a really fun way. So Bryant Lake Bowl, I will never not do it at Bryant Lake Bowl. Yeah. It is the perfect place for it. I love them forever, but it's the perfect venue, great food, great beverage in this little theater. And it has grown into something, for me at least, like I never would have imagined that I'd be doing this thing almost 20 years later.
Did you ever get like a cease and desist from Lucas?
No, there was a while where I was hoping for it,
right, yeah.
Because I wanted to have the the conversation, because in my mind, this is a show in a box. This could be done in every major city because it benefits the company. Most people buy Star Wars toys and bring them. So just do it as a Toys for Tots event. Just do it to benefit your community.
Right.
And I mean, I still kind of harbor that dream. I hope that someday, we've done it in a couple other locations.
Art Carney action figure.
We need one. The world is missing a B. Arthur action figure too. But it's just been a blast, and I know you've attended more than once, and yeah, it's a raucous affair.
Well, it does feel like that show, the holiday special, is now kind of a culty national thing.
Yep.
I would have to imagine, I'm sure there's been other people around too, but you've been beating that drum for a while. I have to imagine that, you're partially responsible for that.
Well, yes. I'm happy to have shown it to an audience enough, and it's fun that now that there's been documentaries made about it, and so I get to know more about the production as well because people have shared these stories.
Yeah.
But I just I feel, again, nothing but gratitude that people here have made it part of their holiday tradition. And year after year, I see some of the same faces, and people are so generous and bringing so many toys. We've overwhelmed the Marines multiple times with how many toys are collected there. And truly, like, to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
What a fun way to be able to give back.
And you can go, and you got to watch it once.
Right?
You don't have to watch it ever again. I sat down the first time. I'll pop my head in and watch little clips, but yeah, could I sit down for the whole thing again? I don't know.
Yeah. And, it's grown over time working with the 501st Legion and Minnesota Force, and they've done a great job of breaking it up and making it far more engaging and experiential, if you will. But without those folks too, it would just be really, really awful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support and coming over the years. It truly is. It's my favorite night of the year.
When does it happen?
It's going to be mid-December-ish again this year. It's a Wednesday in December.
Okay.
We did it on the actual 40th of Life Day one year. But it's fun to do later into December. So we'll have our date here locked in pretty quick, but it's usually about this time BLB hits me and says, all right,
it's time.
It's time.
Your Instagram bio says you are a theme park enthusiast, exotic beverage concoctor, and curator of curiosities. Is that all three at once, or do you try to compartmentalize?
I mean, sometimes they overlap. Sometimes that Venn diagram overlaps.
When you nail it, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
I suppose when you go to Disney World and you get the tiki punch.
I think it's in the Midwest, especially growing up around here, everybody had a bar in the basement, and our bar just happens to be highly themed, and there happens to be stories that I know for the beverages that we concoct, and I'm surrounded by totems that I've collected throughout my travels or people have brought me. So yeah, it all exists in one spot.
What is the beverage of choice? What's the recipe for the one thing?
So for me, I think I have, based on my wife's opinion as well, I like the Mai Tai I make better than anywhere else that I can get it.
All right.
But right now, Mezcal Margarita is a home run.
All right.
And then there's this other one that I do. Sorry, I could go on about this. The Luau Daiquiri. So it's homemade vanilla bean syrup, rum, and orange juice and lime juice. And
vanilla in a daiquiri. I don't think.
Vanilla bean syrup. So instead of a simple syrup, it's a vanilla bean syrup that I make. And then rum
just gives
orange,
it a little
lime, and it's.
I guess rum already has some
summer in a glass, and doesn't taste like there's any booze in it, and you got to be really careful. But it's delicious.
All right.
But yeah, again, it all comes back to storytelling, and I think that Disney connection led me to Beach Bum Berries. Potions of the Caribbean was the book, and I was looking through the book, and there was one that was called an M1. And it was a beverage that was made with a peated single malt and nectarine. And it sounded really good. And I thought, if I'm going to make this, I would love to drink it out of something that looked like spent munitions. So I started looking for like old shells or whatever.
Yeah.
And it led me to Trader Vic's, which was a very popular tiki bar chain, had a vessel that looked like a 12 gauge shell called the Big Shot. And so I got some of those before the boom around those things happened. And I remember making those beverages in there and saying, it was called the M1 because of the smokiness, supposed to kind of remind you of the spent shell, And Sarah's reaction to drinking it and just having that whole thing together was awesome. And it was a story in a glass. And so reading that book and just overpaying for cocktails, I'm done.
Yeah,
I can do it at home and I can do it better.
totally.
Yeah.
I took a class in college. I forget the name of it, but it was basically drugs and alcohol class. And they said the experience of drugs and alcohol is all about set and setting. You can get drunk in one scenario and not drunk in the other, consuming the same thing. It's all about the frame, the mindset that you're in at the time. So I would imagine bringing a storytelling lens to that makes the drink maybe taste better even.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. Like for me, it's about creating a comfortable atmosphere where we can sit down and shoot the shit, tell stories. And I'm happy to, once I started approaching it like cooking, cooking at the beginning can seem daunting because you don't have the right recipes and you need to go get these spices or whatever, ingredients, sorry.
Yep.
But when you put it all together and you're done, it's like, it feels good to be able to share that. And once I kind of figured out that, I'm just doing that, but for beverages, it made it easier then to have all these different bottles and different things. Cause it is all wildly different, but it's fun when it all comes together. And it's like, here, please enjoy this little concoction. Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Can we stop talking about it? I'm thirsty. Jeez Louise.
Better beverage program here next time, man.
Yeah, this water is not hitting the mark.
No.
Let's talk a little bit about maybe some advice for folks. And I don't know if you feel like you're in a position to give advice or not, but like, are there any tips or tricks or habits in your life that you have found that have, kind of led to, I mean, you've had a lot of different experiences, right? And you've probably taken something from each. There is a through line throughout your career, but any words of wisdom or advice?
Probably not wisdom or advice. And I appreciate you saying that. It is weird to think that people might want to come to you for advice or that your experience is enough to warrant such a thing. So I like to speak from my experiences. If it works for somebody, great. But I think I've talked about this a little bit too with some other friends, that to me there is just a loss of curiosity and an assumption of knowledge that you didn't earn because of the device that we carry on us all the time. And it kind of goes back to that video store where we had to actively seek things out, and being curious has led to so many great things for me. And it's not just that, I can Google this and know the answer. Cause that's not knowledge. That's just, you have an answer for a thing right now.
Yep.
But it's in conversations like this and getting to know people. And, one of the things, this is going to ramble a little bit, but it's like one of those things where you go to a party, whatever, work function, and someone says, what do you do? And I feel like I hate that question more than anything else because it's fake. You probably don't care, or you're trying to classify.
They're asking,
us.
who are you? Yeah.
And I think something like, what are your hobbies or what do you like to do is far more interesting than defining yourself by how you earn money to spend your time and leisure. Right.
Yep.
So I think be curious, be okay failing. As long as you learn, it's okay. And I think that's the hardest thing these days too, because social media projects so much that's positive or has the veneer of perfection. And think about how many times you had to fail, I had to fail, privately or publicly, especially when it's with an art form, and you have to learn from it and move on. And be curious. Don't be afraid to fail. And the other thing is, for me, I have shut out a lot of social media recently because I found I was giving a lot of time and energy to things that I couldn't affect or control.
Yep.
And it was a waste. And I would rather spend time being curious and reading more and engaging in conversation more. But the world is, it's a different place than when I was out there. And I think I would love to listen to some young folks that are trying to get into the industry right now too, and hear some of the challenges they're having.
Well, you're in a position where, the in-person thing is so important too, right? So you get to see how that does affect people, right? When they put the devices down. And I think there's going to be a reaction against our digital life to more in-person experiences. I only see that going upward because whether people know it or not, it is affecting how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And I think we're going to be seeking that out. So,
Yeah. And I think there's a time and place for both.
Yeah.
Just like Amazon was never going to be the death of brick and mortar. Is it going to affect it? Is it going to disrupt it? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, bringing it back to like Mall of America or the movie theater, there are some things you can't replicate in other settings. I love being in a theater, watching a film with a group of strangers that are having that same reaction. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you came from, and it doesn't matter. We are here and we're enjoying this thing together. Like Avengers Endgame for me is probably the greatest time I will ever have in a movie theater because of the long-term storytelling.
Yep.
However you feel about the genre, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like that moment, I would not trade for anything.
That moment was earned.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you're in a theater full of people who are all invested in that story, that collective thing that happens was
nothing like it.
Was incredible.
And same thing with Mall of America. Sure, you can click a box on your phone and get the thing delivered to you, but it doesn't supplant the experience you have with that tactile experience or getting a cup of coffee or food and drink.
I bet if you hired scientists to do the heart rate and brain scan of somebody going on a roller coaster, I bet you it's different if there's a group of people versus going on it alone. Same kind of communal thing.
So there's actually something that was pretty interesting that, again, when I am proposed with something, I want to experience it and know about it. So a while ago, they were making this big push for VR overlays on roller coasters.
Yep.
You can't afford a new roller coaster? That's fine. We're going to put a headset on you,
right,
and it's going to be a totally different experience. So my friend Brian and I went down to Six Flags because at the time they had the VR coaster.
Yep.
I can't remember the name of the roller coaster itself, but we rode the roller coaster.
So you're on the roller coaster, a real one, and you have the headset, so it's like an overlay. So you're like, on a mountain or something.
Right. Like so we did it both ways. We rode the coaster first, and then we did it with the headset. And the headset is like some Captain Planet style, animation with, things firing around you and da-da-da-da-da. Focus was off a little bit. It's this heavy headset. It's all these things. And you get off the ride and it's like, well, that's not great. So we stepped back and we watched the roller coaster go. The front two cars were the people with the headsets and the back was the people without. And the people in front are sitting there like this. And the people in back are like, yeah, screaming and having a blast because they can see what's coming and anticipate it. And like that to me was almost that perfect metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That's amazing.
So yeah, experiment complete. It's right there. It was great to see in real time and just say, nope.
It's good people are trying new stuff, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. And somebody will find the right application for it and find the right way to do it. But at the end of the day, we crave that real experience.
We're animals.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Any lessons from any setbacks or losses that come to mind?
Yeah. And I think it is just that thing of not being afraid to try it again. Take the time to learn from it. I mean, it's great to kind of recount and talk about these things. It's almost like it's a greatest hits. But one of the biggest failures of all time, the Star Wars Holiday Special, is one of the greatest hits of mine.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy that somebody went out there and said, let's do the Star Wars variety show.
I mean, thousands of kids got a toy at Christmas because they made that variety show.
Which was never what anybody intended.
No.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Well, I think that speaks to the value of just creation, right? You create something, you put something into the universe that wasn't there before. There's going to be unintended consequences that ripple forever, right?
Yeah.
And it's just putting it out there. If it didn't, you wouldn't have that.
Exactly.
Right?
So, yeah. And I do have to remind myself of that from time to time, too. You get to a spot where, you don't want to stumble again.
Yep.
You don't want to fail again, but you have to.
Yep.
You have to be okay with it. And it's okay.
Yeah.
People will forgive you. A lot fewer people are paying attention to you specifically than you think so, probably. But it's okay.
Oh yeah, people don't really care.
They'll be on to the next thing soon anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have a secret cabal of other experiential or retail executives that you have secret meetings? Like, I'm looking for an industry hot take. Like, what's the one thing that you feel runs counter to everyone else that's kind of working on the same stuff that you are?
That is an interesting question. I think there are certain things that we're going to see, those unintended consequences. I think climate change, call it whatever you want, is a real concern for a lot of things. And you look at how themed entertainment spaces are being built or designed. There was a time where building a theme park inside a mall seemed like a crazy idea. And right now that seems like maybe that's a pretty good idea because we can control a lot more.
Yep.
And so I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening in these spaces because of travel's more expensive. The world is a bit smaller now because of, social media, Instagram, whatever it is. So communities are finding themselves easier. It's easier to get people to buy into certain IP now. Again, long-winded, but I think regional indoor theme parks are going to become a lot more prevalent. So you'll always have Orlando, you'll always have Anaheim, but there's going to be a lot more Bonner Springs, Kansas. There's going to be a lot more Bloomington, Minnesota, things like that popping up.
Well, I mean, Netflix just announced they're it's not a theme park, but like that. Dude. Okay.
We were this close.
Oh, really?
We were this close.
They might have come here?
Crushed. Yes.
Okay.
But that's going to be awesome. It's going to be really, really cool. Yeah.
Well, I'd imagine they have ideas to bring it elsewhere too, not just the one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but you're referring to the Netflix Experience store, which essentially is going to be in Texas somewhere, I can't remember, and then King of Prussia in Pennsylvania. But they get it. They want to put people in their IP in a way that's easier for them to access it. I worked with Netflix once briefly on a log shoot overlay. We turned the log shoot into the city of Hawkins for Stranger Things. And they were great to work with then. And I hope we can work with them again in the future. But they get it. They get it.
We've talked a lot about movies. Anything you've watched, TV or film lately, that has left a big impression?
This would be weird, but I think Bad Boys 4 had a lot more meaningful conversations in it than people would realize. I've been talking a lot with Sarah, especially about souls and soul ages and our experience. Being a body is tough, man. Being a person is tough.
Exhausting.
It is exhausting. And I think there is some merit to that idea of an old soul, is maybe a soul that's just been here and figured some things out and has taken stuff in a different direction versus a young soul that's maybe a little bit more rambunctious.
Wait, you got this from the new Bad Boys?
So,
okay, I haven't seen it. So,
spoiler alert, Martin Lawrence's character dies and goes essentially to like the astral plane of Wakanda in the movie, and has these visions.
Okay.
And when he comes back, he's a different person. And he realizes he and Will Smith's character are soulmates. And that they've been intertwined and they've been together. And his character is just a young soul. And his character is an old soul.
Oh, wow.
And it's like the conversation that they have about these things, it's wrapped in a bit of comedy. But I think there's some merit to it. And if we can sneak that idea to the public via Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I would like to talk more about how hard our journey is here, just being people on this planet together.
Yeah.
And finding a way that we can concentrate more on what we have in common than what we don't.
A teaspoon of medicine helps, or a teaspoon of sugar helps the medicine go down, right? So if we get that from Bad Boys,
there's hope for us all.
Yeah.
Well, Hulk Hogan's out there trying to, how do you say it? Bring the country closer together, one beer at a time. So.
Hell yeah,
there's hope for us all. I really liked the documentary "The Perfect Wife."
Haven't seen
That's
that.
on Hulu about was her name Sherry Papini, the woman who was kidnapped and faked her own kidnapping. That was really interesting. But otherwise, I haven't seen a lot of new stuff that I've been really excited by. How about you?
We loved the first 2 seasons of The Bear.
Okay.
So we just watched the first episode. We're going to watch another one tonight. Big fan of that. I never worked in a kitchen. I worked in a few rrestaurants.
After that, I don't want to.
Oh, I know. Well, and everybody that's worked in a kitchen, they're like, they can't watch it because of the PTSD.
Imagine.
You know, but I think, I mean, I love the acting in it. I love the direction in it because they just take some risks with it.
Yeah.
You know, like the first episode of season 3, I mean, 10 lines of dialogue in the whole thing, you know? And it felt like you were kind of stoned while you were watching it because like time and space separated a little bit. But
that's awesome.
You know, but yeah, I'm enjoying that, and I like it because I get to watch it with my wife too.
Right.
Because you know, there's not a lot of things because I like the weird stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and the scary stuff, and the heady stuff, and she does not.
Right.
You know, so to find that thing you can watch together is pretty great.
Which is why I'm pitching her so hard. We got to go see Bad Boys 4. You're going to love this conversation. No.
I know.
That, and I've really enjoyed The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah.
On History Channel. That's fun.
Are you a believer?
Oh, there's
no doubt.
No doubt. Absolutely. It's just the what is it?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to ask those questions.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I got hooked on the Mystery of Oak Island.
Love it.
I know.
Same.
But I started to get a little tired of it because it's like 14 seasons in and they still haven't really found much.
But
they're milking it.
It's because the narrator needs to change it up.
Yeah.
Coconut fiber? 80 feet underground?
Yeah.
Could it be?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, again, there's no doubt that there's something there.
Oh, for sure.
What is it? Is it just the people that dug there before thinking there was something there? Is there actually really
I mean, the irony
there?
is they're minting money producing this.
Mm-hmm.
They've made more money producing it than they probably find underground. So they're going to milk it as long as they possibly can. I don't blame them.
Nope.
But
And I'm thoroughly entertained.
Just dig the damn hole.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way.
You know, in a previous episode, we talked to Andy Hunt, who had a hilarious Quentin Tarantino story. I know you have one too.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing?
No, not at all. So again, all goes back to the world of the VHS. And as a kid growing up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and finding like Shaft was great. When I saw Shaft at the time, I'd never seen anything like it. So then I'm like watching, you know, Fred Williamson's the Black Caesar and Black Belt Jones, and like going through now what I know is blaxploitation. Mm-hmm. So pretty early on when I moved to LA, there was a book coming out called What It Is, What It Was, and it was a history of blaxploitation cinema. And they were doing a book signing at the Hollywood Book and Poster Company. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be Rudy Ray Moore and Fred Williamson, Pam Grier, and a couple other folks. And I was like, I am going to go and I'm going to get my book, I'm going to get this signed. So I'm there early and I'm waiting and I'm going through all the stuff and I'm looking at this making of book about Saving Private Ryan. And this kid's like, oh, Dad, look, it's a book about Saving Private Ryan. And Dad looks, and Dad is Billy Idol.
Oh.
And so Billy Idol is there. And so now Billy Idol and I are having this conversation about Saving Private Ryan and what's he doing there and what's going on, da-da-da. Lovely conversation. So I go, I get my book signed. Like, that was weird. What a great day. Mm-hmm. I walk outside Hollywood Book and Poster, and Quentin Tarantino is walking down the sidewalk. He wrote the foreword to the book.
Is this late 90s, early 2000s?
This is late 90s.
Okay.
Late 90s. So he's walking down the sidewalk. He's about to come into the store. I was like, Quentin, how's it going? He's like, pretty good, man. How are you? And he's pretty jovial, engaging. I'm like, do you want to meet Billy Idol? He's like, yeah. So I bring him in and I introduce him to Billy Idol. And the two of them are talking, get your song in a project, da-da-da-da. I was like, hey, can I get a picture of you guys? And so it's a picture of the two of them, like, clasping hands, like they just won, you know, doubles tennis or something in the Hollywood Book and Poster Company. And that was... So I do believe to this day, if I met Quentin Tarantino in another setting and be like, do you remember that time you were introduced to Billy Idol? That was a very young me years ago.
Like, I remember Billy, but I don't remember you.
Exactly. But that's my connective point.
Do you still have the picture?
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I do have it somewhere.
Find it if you can.
I will.
And
I will do my best.
We'll put it in here for sure.
Do my best.
Lexi's like, yeah.
I know. I've moved like 4 times since then.
Yeah.
I'll do my best.
No, that's a piece of history there.
It was hilarious. It was
how do you
hilarious.
not have that in your tiki bar like frame?
That's true. I know. Yeah. It's a glaring oversight.
Yeah. Well, if you find it, let us know.
I will.
That would be hilarious.
Absolutely.
Anything we're not talking about? Anything else you want to add?
No, just I appreciate your friendship over the years. Again, you're one of the best writers I know this is not what you want to hear right now. And, I just thank you for the conversation. And we can do this again without the mics and with better beverages.
Yeah. You have me jonesing for some of those. Well, thank you for being here. This was incredible. And good luck with the water park and all the other fun things. I can't wait to try it out.
If my team listens to this, they would be mad if I didn't say this to you right now. Luck is for losers. We got this.
Break a leg? I don't know.
Sounds good.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.